Welcome, everybody, to this JMC 2021 Minnesota Edify onboarding. Glad to have you. The Minnesota Department of Education is in the process of transitioning all Minnesota public and charter schools to Edify form of data collection for the 2021-2022 school year. James will be onboarding all remaining school districts to this new process. Today, we will walk you through the 4 phases to start submitting data to the MDE via Edify for the remainder of the 21-22 school year. Here's what's on the agenda today. Phase 1, initial steps. Phase 2, staging. Phase 3, transition from staging to production. And phase 4, the production environment. Now, I'm going to tell you some things right off the bat and shoot you straight to make sure that we set you up for success. Number 1, the only way to be successful is to follow the directions exactly as we have them laid out. Don't start with stage 2 or jump to stage 3. Take it one step at a time. That's number 1. Number 2 is when we're done with this training later today or tomorrow, I will be emailing out to you the YouTube link of this exact presentation and these slides as well. So you'll take the slides that I'm showing you today and you'll walk through each and every step that we do. We had a school last year that watched this presentation. Within 2 days, they completed all of the phases. Why? Because they did every step exactly as we have it laid out here. That's the only way to be successful. And we set you up for success because this is our 3rd year doing this. We've onboarded almost 100 schools already. So we know how it's done. The MDE has their side set up. So you're set up for success there. So just the number 1 rule is follow these directions because that way you will be successful. I talked to a person who's on this training. We were doing a little Q&A before this. And she said, I can't get into my Edify part yet. And I said, well, that's because you haven't even started the initial steps, right? So follow these directions. You'll be good to go. You'll have these slides sent to you. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the description lower down, a link to this slide deck will be put in there for you. Follow these directions. I had somebody ask me earlier this week, a school said, hey, I'm following all the slides you have. Is that what I do? Absolutely. Every school does it exactly the same. So we're going to get right into it. I'm going to go right through it pretty quickly because, again, the expectation is not that you're going to take notes to do each one of these things. The expectation is that you'll download these directions when we're done that I have right here for you and follow these directions. So if you have a question, we are standing by ready to answer your questions. Simply use the Q&A chat feature in your webinar toolbar. And that way I will bring those up and look at those questions anytime a Q&A slide is shown. So I'd wait till we get through all the items there and listen to that Q&A slide. And as we go through, will not only be showing you the steps, but giving you some tips as well for success. So phase 1, the initial steps, upload your Mars fall submission. Prior to starting the Edify onboarding, schools will complete the Mars file submission process to ensure your Mars submission is free of state reporting errors. This includes uploading an error-free Mars A and B file to the Minnesota Department of Education. I'm going to be really clear on this. There is no real point in starting the Edify process until you have a Mars A and B file uploaded that is error-free. This is the first step. Some people say, what's the first step with Edify? It's not Edify. It's Mars. You need to make sure you have an error-free Mars A and B file uploaded. And you're going to do that multiple times throughout the process. Here's a fun fact, and this is really important. Students who are included in Mars and future Edify submissions are denoted in JMC office with the Mars checkbox on the View Student Data page in the General tab. Any student you like included in your Mars and future Edify reporting needs to have the Mars checkbox checked, right? It's a little different than Mars before. In Mars, you could submit data and there was ways to get data in even if the Mars checkbox wasn't checked. Most kids, the Mars checkbox was checked. But here's the rule. If the Mars checkbox is checked for a kid, they're going to be included in Edify. If it's not checked, they're not going to be included in Edify. So if I was you, I would scroll through each student and look at each student, not your full-time students, right? You can scroll through that really easily, right? But look for the kids whose Mars checkbox is not checked, right? That might be active. Maybe it's a PSEO student or something like that, and determine whether they should be included in Mars or not. So the highlight here is right off the bat, before you do anything with Edify, make sure you've got an error-free Mars A and B file that you've uploaded and checked in Mars West. Mars West has no errors, and all the kids have their Mars flag checked that you want included. Now we get to the school calendar setup. Set up your school calendar in James' office for each JMC building you're reporting to Mars via Edify, so each school's term dates are correctly uploaded via the Edify process. Now, everybody should have done this already. So I'm going to go through pretty darn quickly because it's pretty darn easy. So each JMC building must have a calendar set up, including the following items: first day of school, last day of school, all start term dates for the terms that the building uses, like quarters, trimesters, or semesters, and all end of term dates that the JMC building uses. You'll find it under attendance calendar days in JMC office. So accurate data comes from an up-to-date school calendar. Setting your calendar in JMC is the first step in your attendance being calculated for you. Remember, attendance is one of the key components of Edify reporting and plays a part in your district's funding. Let's start at the district level for start and end dates, and then move to the buildings for special days and term dates as well. So step one, select the first day of school and the last day of school using the appropriate drop-down list. This is done at the district level. Then you'll click the save button to save that. Step two. Step three, you'll double click the gray bar on the district-wide no school day to indicate there's a no school for the entire day for that school. So if you've got a no school day, right, that you'll come in, double click on that, it'll make it as a no school day. And I'll show this live as well. Helpful tip, if it's a partial day, double click again. So you'll come in here, you'll double click once, it'll say no school for the entire day. You'll double click again, it'll say, it'll say no, if it's, got tongue tied. If it's gray, it means it's a normal school day. If I double click one time, it'll say no school for the entire day. If I double click again, it'll say no school in the morning. If I double click again, it'll say no school in the afternoon, which is PM. Then term dates refer to the days that grading terms in the school year are set to begin or end. Since different buildings can have different grading schemes, you need to set terms for each building. Step one, select the term dates radio button. So now I'm in the JMC building. I select the term dates here. Then I'll double click the gray bar on a day that represents either the start or end of a term to open the grading term dates editing window. So you go to the end of typically the end of quarter one, right? Or the end of try one or semester one, and double click on that. Then that'll bring up this window. You'll place a check mark in the term type your school uses in the appropriate checkbox. Helpful tip, JMC sets the start and end dates for your term type based on the first and last day selections. Then you click the save button or close if you don't want to save that item there. Special days, and this is important, are days that the select grade levels are not in school. For example, your senior class may not have school the last few days, while other grade levels are in session. I've got a lot of schools now where the elementary school grade levels don't start until a day after the high school. This is the same example. You'll begin setting these non-instructional days at the building level again. So step one, select the special days radio button to enter grade level non-instructional time periods. Step two, click the grades drop-down list and choose that non-instructional day for that specific grade. Step three, you'll double click the gray bar on the special day to indicate the grade level is not in school for that date. So let's take a look at this. Like I said, I'm going through this quickly because almost everybody has done this already, but I'm in my district, attendance, calendar, days, come in here, set the first day of school, set the last day of school, click save. If you've got a day that there's no school here, such as the 17th here, I can double click on that. That means for the whole district, nobody's going to school on the 17th. So that's really easy. Then I come here, switch to my buildings. I'm going to do each building, not just one. So I'd have to do this twice. So I'm only going to show it to you once. I'll go to the elementary as an example. If there is a special day here, let's say that the kindergarten doesn't go to school here on the 13th, I would choose my kindergarten students here, double click on the 13th, and that will make it as a no school day. I could say, oh, they're actually not going to be at school in the morning. I double click no school AM, click no school PM. Maybe I made a mistake. They do have school that day. I'll change it to that right there. Okay. It will also show me the other days that this kindergarten has no school. These are the days I marked previously in my other Edify onboardings. If I go back to all grades, it'll say, hey, varies by grade, meaning that some grades have no school on this day, but other school grades do. Then here's the term dates here. If I want to come in and enter in the end of, let's say, quarter one and quarter two start here. Let's say I didn't have this listed here. This is my quarter two start date. I'd simply double click on that and say, all right, it would not be clicked. So let me show you here. Let's say that this is my quarter two start date, November 1st. Double click on that, brings up this window here. Say, oh, here's my quarter two start date. You check that box and I click save. And this is going to show me my quarter two start. So you'll see if I get to the end of my quarter two here, it'll say, here's my SEM one end, quarter two end. I've already come in here. I've checked this to be my SEM one end and my quarter two end, and I save that. And then I went in and I did my double clicked here and said, all right, this is the start of Sem 2 and quarter 3, and I save that. So really easy to do. The person that manages the calendar, I would say just do this all at once. It's really easy to do. You can also click the view term dates button, or link, excuse me. That'll show all the items that you have here. If you don't have a term, like if you don't have trimesters or hexes, I would go in and delete out those particular dates. All right. I went through this a little more quickly than the other parts will because most people are doing this. All right, I see a question came up already from Janie. Janie, good to have you on. She says, are Mars warnings okay to have when you start Edify? That's a great question. So you can leave Mars warnings if you want to as you proceed to Edify. And the reason we tell you to fix your errors in Mars is that you're gonna if you don't fix them in Mars, then you're gonna have later you have a Mars error to fix and an Edify error to fix, right? So that you're just doing double duty. That's why we want you to have a Mars error-free file. Also, you'll be doing file comparisons. So a warning, I think, is fine. It's the errors that we want to make sure are taken care of, because when you do your comparison, the MD is going to say, hey, we want you to have an error-free Mars A and B file uploaded and an error-free Edify submission to compare them to make sure that they're correct. But if a warning is not an error, then you should be good to go. All right, don't think there's any calendar questions. There's usually not, because people have that pretty down pat. All right, staging, key, and secret. This is getting into it. This is the first part of Edify, right? You've uploaded your Mars as A and B file. They're error-free. Now, your new staging key and secret. Your school will replace your staging key and secret combination with a unique production key and secret combination to serve as your connection from JMC to Mars via Edify. The MDE created the Edify Security Configuration Tool, ESCT, to create your production key and secret. So step 1, click here to begin the ESCT process. A lot of you have done this already, I'm sure, if not all of you, because you would have had to do it with your MDE onboarding process. If you have any questions about the ESCT process, contact the MDE at edify.mde.state.mn.us. They are the ones that handle this. And this is the first step of the Edify process. It's all on the MDE site. Once you have attained your staging key and secret, you're ready to enter this information in the JMC office. The next step is to update your Edify settings. So if anybody has any questions, I don't think people do about this, you can type them in. I can take them at the end of the next section as well. But again, we don't do anything with getting your key and secret. That's all done to the MDE site, and they do a really great job of guiding schools to that process with the resources they have. And if you need help, you can email them. All right, now we get to the JMC part, which is to update your Edify settings. Setting up your MDE Edify connection with your school's JMC database begins with entering your Edify settings by JMC administrator. First, head to File, Administrator Options in JMC Office to update your Edify settings. And again, you have to be logged in as someone who has JMC administrator privileges or your JMC admin. So you'd want to make sure that if you're the person doing this, talk to the person who manages your usernames and passwords, your user privileges, your application security, and make sure you're checked as a JMC administrator. So step 1, click the Edify settings link to access your school settings. This will open the Edify settings screen in a new window in your web browser. Now it's time to turn on the Edify interchanges. Enter your settings and begin sending and receiving data. Step 2, place a check mark in the Enable Edify Interchanges checkbox to turn on the Edify interchanges between JMC and MDE. Step 3, enter the client key and secret you obtained in your ESCT process in the appropriate fields to connect your school's database to the MDE via Edify. Step 4, select Staging Environment in the Implementation Status drop-down list to turn on your school's staging environment. Step 5, click the Save button to update your school's Edify settings. So I'm going to take a look at that. If you have a question about it, you can just start typing it in now, because I'm going to get to that slide pretty quick, because again, this step and all the steps actually are pretty straightforward up until this point. So I'm going to go under File to Administrator Options, File to Administrator Options, come down here to Edify settings, check my Enable Edify Interchanges checkbox. You'll probably just copy it. I'm guessing I don't know if you could type it in, they're long. Copy in your client key, copy in your client secret, and click save. And this is done once for the whole district. You do not need to do it for each building. That's my elementary. If I go to my high school, it's going to be there. I don't even know if you can access it at the district level. Oh, you can. So all that information is set right there, easy to do. All right. Again, copying and pasting, really easy to do. You're getting that information from the MDE. All right, I'll take a second to see if anybody has any questions. If not, then I'll keep on rolling. All right. Let's keep on rolling here. So once you've updated your Edify settings in JMC Office, you're ready to begin testing the process of sending and receiving data to MDE via Edify. Now, what I want to tell you is this is staging, right? The whole purpose of staging is to test the process out. You'll be sending data to MDE or getting data downloaded to MDE, but it's actually not real, right? You're not actually getting that information for actual state reporting. Staging is the testing environment. The state wants you, and JMC wants to make sure that the process is all set up for you in staging before you go live with the production environment. So you don't have to get too stressed out about it. We tell people don't be stressed anyways, because you just follow the steps. The staging is the testing part of it. Don't get stressed out. Just go through the steps, get it all figured out, and you'll be good to go. So let's start with the start your steps. So now that your Edify interchanges are turned on and all students are marked to be included in Edify reporting, let's ensure that your JMC Office data has been set up correctly to submit your data to the MDE via Edify. I want to make one more point, and this is important for me as a JMC trainer. If you're the person who's in charge of this process at your school district, you gotta own it. You gotta take this webinar, go through the steps, understand the steps that are being done to the best of your ability. If you go into this saying, I'm just going to check the boxes and do it as quickly as possible, you're going to probably run into problems a little bit later, because if you're like, well, I don't quite understand the calendar or whatever it might be, you want to make sure you understand it, because this is the way it's going forward, and it's going to be easier than Mars going forward. But take the time. We are all busy, absolutely, but the time to learn it and then digest it now will save you hours and hours of work later. So here we go. Go to Minnesota Edify Start Year to begin working through the Start Year steps. Step 1, complete the items on the Prep tab to ensure your JMC Office data is set up correctly. Helpful tip, place a check mark in each of the appropriate checkboxes as you complete each item to track your progress. Now let's head over to the Tables tab to begin importing school and LEA information from MDE. So when I tell you got to own this, right, you make a little note to yourself. Hey, the Tables tab, I am updating information from MDE to JMC, right? You're not sending anything, you're updating it. So you'll start by step 1, click the Update All Schools table button to download the latest MDE All Schools table with the information from all Minnesota schools. Step 2, click the Update All Local Education Agencies, LEA button to download the most recent MDE LEA list. Step 3, click the Update All Post-Secondary Institution button to download the latest MDE Post-Secondary Institution list. And step 4, click the Update All Courses button to update MDE state course codes. That's related, I think, to Minnesota Common Course Catalog. But what do you need to know what the tables is coming here? Do them one at a time. Let them update the information as you go through here. Now, if you get an error here or something comes up, it means that your key and secret are not correct, right? And I'll talk about this in a little bit as well. So you got to go back, check with your key and secret. It occasionally it does happen where a school will get their key and secret by following the process of MDE, but something's not right on the MDE side. Not that they're making a mistake or whatever, but a lot of things going on. You might have to, you'll have to again, reach out to the MDE. So if you get an error on this screen, email the MD and say, hey, it says something like my authentication token is not correct or something like that. That you'll reach out to the MD, because all we're doing is we're downloading information from the MD. So if that doesn't work, it means your key and secret are not correct. All right, now you go to the General tab in Minnesota Edify Start Year to send your district calendar to the MDE. Click the Update Calendar All Buildings button to send the district calendar information to MDE. Helpful tip, wondering if you need to knock out any to-dos on the Students tab? Not at this moment. You're good to skip it for now. So that's a tab that will be used in the future. Let's take a look at the Start Your Steps. And like I said, you want to own this, right? You want to make sure you understand what's going on here. I'm going to go under Minnesota Edify Start Year. What are them? Make sure all your new students are in. Check. Students have lunch statuses have been updated, including importing lunch status from the prior year. Check that should be done for already. But if that's not done, don't check that box. Don't move forward. Make sure all your lunch status have been updated to the best of your ability, right? I mean, if I take one in, if I'm doing it today and I'm like ready to move forward, and a kid brings in their lunch, a lunch-free reduced application, you don't need to hit the brakes on everything, but we just want to make sure that as much of it is done as possible, and make sure your calendar days are sent in. Then you'll come here to tables, click the box here. Okay, that will update this information, update my all local LEH information as well. It says it's not done. I'm on a demo database. I don't think it's going to work. Yeah, I'm going to get an error there because I'm not a real schools database, right? That's why that's happening there. So, but you'll come in here, you'll want to check that. It'll give you a message there. I think when it was last completed, and then you'll be good to go. So you'll click all those. Make sure to let them run. When you click on them, there'll be an information down here telling you that oh yeah, it was updated. All it's telling you is that the information has been downloaded there. And then you go to general. You'll update your calendar. It's done for all buildings. That's why we have that listed there, right? All at the same time. So great. Somebody typed a question. I love it. Thinking ahead here because I knew a Q&A item was coming up here. All right. JD, keeping me busy today. I like it. Is this portion done by building and a building Mars user or one main individual owner such as the Mars coordinator? Great question. So this particular portion can be done by one person. It can be your Mars coordinator, or it can be a person that is managing this part for your district. So I have some districts, some of our larger districts, where somebody's in charge of the Edify transition process, but they might not be editing Mars records, right? So that'd be that person, or maybe it's the person is your Mars coordinator. They would go through this as well, whatever you want to do there. So you'd want to come in and do this as well. So I believe, I want to make sure, I believe this is done for the whole district. Yeah, you could go in and check and do it at each building. Not going to hurt anything, but I'm pretty sure it's done at the district because Edify reporting in general is done at the district. So I believe it's just done at the district. So Edify reporting is district wide. So great question there. I want to go back and look at my page. If anybody has any questions, you can sure type them in here. I want to look at this thing here. Yep. We updated though that not done, right? We updated that there so that you'll know with a message there when it's done. So you're not having to repeat that process over and over again because the state has that information published and you are just going in and uploading it really to your JMC database from the state. And you'd only need to do that once a year. All right. Working through errors. Now, oops, there we go. Now that you've updated all Edify tables and sent your calendar to the MDE, it's time to talk errors. Did you receive a few errors during the start of your process or were you error-free? Let's look at the steps to keep you both moving forward. So first, if you're able to complete steps 1 through 7 of the start year steps, that's what we just went through, without errors, your key and secret are successfully communicating with the MDE and for Edify, and you can move on to the Minnesota Edify onboarding phase 2 staging. Yeah. Did you receive errors? If you received errors when performing steps 1 through 7, don't contact JMC. Not that I'm trying to pass the buck, but you need to contact MDE at Edify. At MDE, you can see it right there. You can copy and paste your email to ensure your key and secret you entered on the Edify settings page is correct. Then perform the following. Step 1, enter the correct key and secret obtained from the MDE on the Edify settings page per the instructions on the Edify settings sheet. Step 2, you'll basically go through these steps again. So this, again, I hope you can see it's just following the directions and you're going to be set up for success. Great. Any other questions before we move on to phase 2, which is that staging part where we're going to start to send some data into JMC? I don't think there's any, but we'll see. I'll grab a quick drink of water here. All right. Phase 2, staging. Again, staging is practice, right? We don't need to have stress. It's just practice. Practice is fun, right? That's right. Here we go. The second phase of the Minnesota Edify onboarding process allows you to import, edit, and send student program and special education history data to the MDE. We will remain in the staging environment for this phase to ensure your MD or your Edify data is set up and flowing correctly. After phase 2 is completed successfully, you'll begin to move to the production phase and send your live data to MDE. So here again, we're just testing it out. If you make a mistake here or you have errors, that's all right. That's what this part is for. So first, we're going to import program history and special education history. Program history and special education history are new terms for our Minnesota schools. So again, if you are a MARS coordinator, you're working with MARS records, you're going to want to understand these two terms. The first is the program history. This will allow you to track student involvement in a variety of programs. The special education history tracks a student's history in special education participation. These records, just like MARS, are submitted for Edify reporting. So if you're nervous saying, I don't know what Edify reporting is, this is really the bulk of it. In the future, you won't be sending in MARS records per se. You'll be sending in program history records and special education history records. So you can take a big, deep breath and say, oh, now I understand what Edify is, right? Edify is a different way of submitting the data. That's what we're going to show you. And also there's a little bit different terminology, but instead of doing those MARS records, we have program history and special education history records as well. For now, we're doing both, right? Every school is doing both. So first, we're going to go to Minnesota right here, program and special education history, to import program and special education history and records for all your students at one time. Now, I want to say one thing before I show you how to do this. This is done one time, right? You don't have to do it over and over again. Once you import them, to start the year anyways, it will import all of them and then you can edit them. So it's done one time, it does it for you. It's really easy to do. So step one, enter in 6/1/21 in the begin date field to ensure all program history is converted for any enrollment records that were created or edited over the summer. Now, people are going to say, well, Paul, JMC, we didn't even have school in the 21-22 school year in 6/1/21. Doesn't matter to us. This is what I'm going to just tell you, follow the directions. Put 6/1/21. It's going to take any records you had only in the 21-22 school year. Only in the 21-22 school year. It's going to take those MARS records and import them as program history and special education history records. Just trust us on this one. That's the best date. If you want to know why did I choose 6/1/21, this is why. Because if I choose 6/1/21, some of you are accidentally going to choose 7/1/21. It's just going to happen. And that way we know that still all of your records are going to be imported because it's only for the 21-22 school year. You want to choose 6/1/21. If I chose 7/1/21 or 8/21 here, people are going to choose the wrong date. So we tell everybody just choose 6/1/21, choose that date. It's not going to do anything with 2021. It's only doing with your 21-22 school year. No need to ask a question about that. Just choose 6/1/21. Few fun facts. Leave the end date field blank to ensure all records will be imported from the begin date through the current date. And leave all these checkboxes checked to ensure that all data will be imported. You simply come in here, step one, put in 6/1/21. Step two, click the import button to convert program and special education history to Ed5 for the current school year. And actually, you can do this multiple times throughout the school year, just so you know, but it's only going to take the records that have not been imported and from MARS and switch them over to program and special education history records. Step three, click the import summary button to save the import summary as a PDF or cancel import summary button to return to the import page. This is super important, super important. Anytime you are going to be doing any work with Edify and it brings you to a page that has an import summary, print the import summary and name it. This is my recommendation, the date and what it is, and save it to a folder on your desktop for later review. Okay, because this is the only time you're going to see this. You're not going to see this report again because we're only showing this report on this import. So I would, if I was you and you did this next week, you did it on the 21st of September, I would print the import summary to a PDF and name it 09-21-21 import program and special education history import summary or something like that. Put it in a folder on your desktop for later review. Why? Because of this helpful tip. If you run into trouble when editing program and special education history records, the import summary PDF is a great tool for you and our tech support team to diagnose the error, right? That's number one. But then step four is review the import summary to see what program and special education history records were imported and which student records need to be edited. Helpful tip, the import summary report will detail how the record should be edited and guide you through the process. All right, folks, I don't want you to make a silly mistake. I don't want you to call tech support and say, oh my gosh, I have 71 errors right here that I need to update. Don't do that to yourself. It's going to give you a heart attack, and don't do it for the JMC tech support. What this report is telling us is all the items that were imported. Just because they were imported does not mean they need to be edited. I want to say that again. Just because they were imported does not mean they need to be edited. Let me show you on this particular report. Alicia simply had a Title I record created. She had a Mars record that indicated she was in Title I, and now she has a program history record saying that she was in Title I. Zach also had a Title I record. Tom had a Title I record. Tom here also had a Title I record, okay? Nothing needs to be done. It's just telling that was created. But Asha has a Sliper record that needs to be edited. So we tell you, hey, that you need to edit the Sliper program history record for this new record type. We're just telling you need to go in there and edit the record that's listed there. So if it's going to tell you how many were added here, and you're going to go through, we tell you exactly what needs to be edited. If it doesn't tell you it needs to be edited, nothing needs to be done. Here's a great example. You're going to have a record created for every free and reduced kid. It's going to say every kid that has free and reduced is going to be listed here. And it's going to say a free and reduced record was created or something. I don't know what the exact terminology is. You don't need to do anything unless it tells you that you need to do something with that record. And I'll give you an example of something that needs to be edited. So all program, I'm sorry, it's so important because again, I want you to understand this. So I'll go through it again. The fun fact, all program and special education history records will be imported for your students. Only update records on the view student data screen if the import summary instructs you to do so. So let's take a look at importing the program and special education history records here. And if you've got a question, you can start typing it now. Go back to my home screen here under Minnesota. Edify, I'm sorry, Minnesota, program and special education history, import program and special education history here. We'll come in here, make sure that all the checkboxes stay checked. I'm simply going to come here and go back to 6/1/21 and click import. That's going to import that information. If I import it, it's going to give me an error because I don't have real kids in here, but I'm going to go through that list. It's going to tell me that something needs to be updated, right? It's going to need to be edited. So I'm going to come here to the view student data screen. It's going to tell me that the student's program history record needs to be updated here. So maybe one of your program history records, I'm making this up, doesn't has the economic indicator. Come in here, economic indicator. All right, I need to change my economic indicator. That's not a great example because most likely you're going to have your economic indicator set for all your kids because you know that you need to do that. But I think like one example is, I think I've got one here for John. Oh, I'm in the elementary. Let me go to the high school here. Go. There's John here. That sometimes there's new information. This is what you're going to get a lot. Is there's new information that needs to be entered. For example, students who are homeless. In Mars, right? So you're a Mars person. You understand? In Mars, if a student is homeless, right? They're come here as they're checked. That right here is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? That's what that's checked there. Now, but in Edify, it's a program history record like we talked about. When I choose homeless, right, it has a new checkbox that says unaccompanied youth, right? And so it might tell you that, hey, you might need to come in here and check that as unaccompanied youth or whatever it might be. And that might not be the greatest example, but what I'm telling you is that in program history, sometimes they're collecting more information than is just listed in the Mars record. And if you're nervous, you don't need to be again. You're just going to look at that report, see what items need to be edited, come here and fill out any of the information that's listed here, right? Maybe it's the school information, whatever it might be, but we tell you exactly what to do. And if you need some help, you just highlight that line, send it to tech support and say, hey, I had 6 errors, brag a little bit. I had 6 Edify errors. I took care of 5 of them. Here's one I can't figure out. And they'll help you figure that out. But what that does is if this student, John, was checked as being homeless, in their Mars record here, what it does is it automatically creates that homeless record right here. And then if you don't need to create it, it's there for you. Or update it. If you need to update it, it's going to have you come here and click edit. So this is going to be new for all of you. Again, don't be nervous. Follow the steps, use the report, and you'll be good to go. All right. So let's see if anybody has any questions. I see one's in here already. Sylvia Kennedy, thanks for sending a question, Sylvia. So I see you put in 6/1. Do we put that same date in or are we using the first day of our school year? Great question, Sylvia. I want you to put in 6/1/2021. 2021. Because if you have a date that's before the school year for a Mars record or whatever, right? You've got ESY or I don't even know. There's just all kinds of things here. We want you to put in 6/1/21. That way everybody's doing it the same, right? Because this ensures, just to be clear, Sylvia, if you put 6/1/2021 and every JMC school does, we know that every JMC school is going to have every single special education and program history record imported there. So I want you to put in 6/1/21. It is a best practice there, because what if you put it, what if your first day is September 7th, not 9/7, and you put 9/7 and you click it in there, somebody walks in the office and all of a sudden you click 9/11 accidentally and you import it. Well, there's the mistake, right? By doing 6/1/21, you're good to go. So great question, Sylvia. Thanks for that. Absolutely. And Sylvia, I'm not, and anybody, I hope people don't feel like I'm kind of browbeating you. I am not. I'm just being straightforward because I want you to be successful. Vicky, good to hear from you. She's got a question. I'm sure you already said this, but do we wait until our Mars A and B files are error-free before we do these steps? Absolutely. That's right, Vicky. I'll tease you a little bit here, Vicky. I've worked with you before a little bit, but I did say that before, and 10 times. I'm not picking on you, Vicky. I'm picking on me because it is that important, right? You've got to have a Mars A and B file record created. Make sure to start at the stop of these directions and go through it so you can be successful. No question's a dumb question, right? If I tease folks a little bit, really, I'm only teasing myself because I am emphasizing these things. Why do I emphasize these things? Because tech support has worked with me to tell me if they follow these steps, they'll be successful. Just make sure to emphasize them. So great questions. All right, we got another question coming in. Deb Blyenberg says, any chance you could add the "this was done on" to the import screen? You can put that as a feature request for sure, Deb. I think that's a great request. So I would definitely put that in there. I know we're adding messages as we go, right? Because not only is it new for you, it's new for us as well. So I'll see if that's something that we can have added in. You also can, again, you can do it multiple times. And I want to emphasize one thing before I go, and people can still put questions in, that what's going to happen is you're going to come in, and let me go back to my slides here, actually, because I think it'll be easier. You're going to go in and you're going to import this. You're print it to a PDF. And this is an important point that's not in the slides, but it's inferred, and I've mentioned it, but I want to say it again. You're going to import them. You're going to edit those. If you then edit a student's Mars record, so let's say that this kid, let's say John McElmurray was homeless, right? And when you imported it, right? I'm going to make this up here. So I'm kind of making this up. So just bear with me. John was marked as being homeless and he was sheltered. Okay. What happens is this was already set for you. You imported, and JMC automatically came in here and it created this for you that he was shelters or something like that, right? It creates that same record for you, right? So you'd come in here, you're like, oh yeah, Mars there, and that report's going to tell you John is marked as Mars, and it will tell you if you need to update the program history. Here's the important thing to note: if John moves and he's not sheltered anymore, right? He's not sheltered anymore. Now he's doubled up. You have to change this to doubled up here and update. It doesn't do it automatically. You have to come here to the program history record and say, all right, John's now doubled up here. So anytime after you have imported the record, you would need to do it in both spots. That's, you're doing Mars reporting and Edify reporting. You'll have to do that there as well. I just bring that up to remind you. But so what happens is you might come in 2 weeks later and say, hey, I want to import this again because I've got some new records I created, and I want those Mars records imported to program history and special education history record. Great. Import that. You can do that again there as well. I think it's a good request. Make sure to put that as a special feature request. But you can do this again as you go through. What will happen is if you import, let's say I did it today and I did it tomorrow and nothing was different, it's just going to be blank, right? It's not going to be blank. I think it will say something like program history records added 0, right? Because there will be none that are imported there. All right, great questions. All right. H says, in program history, what is the begin date supposed to be? I'm not sure. I'm guessing that's the date that I'm talking about homelessness here, right? You'll have to determine that that's part of being that Mars person, right? So you could reach out to the MD and ask them what it is, or check the Mars data dictionary, but it's going to be dependent on what that record is, right? So that program history, I showed you homelessness, but a lot of fields are going to have a start date. And again, you'll have to talk to the MD about what they would want. If I was just guessing for homelessness, it'd be the date that they became homeless. Jackie says, hello, Jackie, do you need to create a new row like you did in Mars? I will show you that in a little bit, Jackie. So that's a great question on how to, well, first, let me say the answer is no. The ones that are imported will automatically be imported for you. You'll only be editing those records. In the future, you'd have to, if you added a Mars line, I think I'm guessing if I added a new Mars record, right, and you imported, it would create that new record for you. So you would not need to create a new Mars record. We're going to import it, and then you would edit that record. So great question there, Jackie. All right, Sylvia says, not sure if it's just my system, but you are muting in and out at times. It might just be your system, I'm not sure. I've got really good internet where I'm at here. But Sylvia, if you are having trouble and it's just bothering you, you can keep listening or you could stop. I will be emailing you this presentation. We're all done. It will have all the information or all the voice recording that you need in it. So great. Rebecca, my friend Rebecca, I got to see Rebecca last week at a charter school. Do we still need to create a new enrollment Mars record with the example of a change of status with a new date? Great question. Let me read it again. Do we still need to create a new enrollment Mars record with the example of a change of status and new date? You are going to do everything you did in Mars just like you did last year. It's exactly the same. Do everything in Mars, then you'll import those records regularly, and then you'll edit them if you need to based on the report that's listed there. Mars is exactly the same. There's no changes. You can do that, and then you're going to do this process as well. Great questions coming in. I love it. This is what's going to set you folks up for success. All right. Here we go. Updating a student's program in special education history. Some program history and special education history records will need additional information added depending on the latest MD requirements. I actually kind of showed you this already, so it's just going to be a little bit of review. During this process, your import summary PDF will come in handy. Review the summary and take note of the student records that need to be edited and the next steps indicated. So I jumped the gun. I do this sometimes. Sorry about that. But head to view student data in James the office to add additional information to a program or special education history if indicated on the import summary here. Step 1, select the student here. Step 2, click the program history tab to edit the student's program history record indicated on the import summary. Step 3, click the edit button to edit the specified program history record. Step 4, enter the required information in the import summary report. So the import summary report tells you exactly what needs to be edited, right? I can say I changed it here. Step 5, click the update button to save any changes to the student's program history record or cancel the button to exit there. Now, if I'm editing special education history, right? So up here, that was the program history. Now it might tell you need to go to the special education history. Step 1 is click the special education hist tab to edit the student's special education history record indicated on the import summary report. So again, I'm referencing that a lot because that's your guide. Step 2, again, click the edit button to edit the special education history record. Step 3, enter the required information the import summary report is requesting using the appropriate drop-down lists here. So I think for this one, for example, there's now like the placing local education agency record here for a special education. I don't think that was previously on a special education record there. Step 4, click the update button to save any changes to the student's program history record or cancel button to exit. So let's take a live look. I know I looked at this already, but I didn't look at the special education one. And again, there's a little learning here, right, folks? So don't beat yourself up. You'll learn as you go. You'll take the report. I'll go to special education history, and I'll come in here and click edit. It's going to tell you, hey, select the placing local education agency. You'll click on that and I'll edit that. These actually, the reason I can't click on these is because I have not yet downloaded from MDE my LEA information because I'm not a real school. But you'll click on here, you'll see the serving school that would choose your school, and you enter the placing local education agency and click on that information right there. So schools that have done this already say it's actually easier because it's all drop-down list, easy to use, easy to manage there. So that's all there is to it. You can see the program history records or special education history records listed there. All right, let's get to the Q&A. We're rolling right through. Let me grab a drink of water and I'll answer that first person's question here. All right, Lori Blumke, good to hear from Lori. I do not have the program history tab yet. How do I get that? Great question, Lori. You will not see that tab until you do all the previous steps in this process. There are no program history records created for you yet because you haven't gone in, haven't put in your Edify key and secret. You've not turned on the Edify and you've not imported those program history records. So you will not see any of this until you complete every single step to start this. And then you're good to go, Lori. So great question. I've had that question before. So thanks for asking it. All right. Anybody else have any questions about editing those special education history or program history records? Knowing again, just if I repeat, see if anybody's typing any questions in. So I'll take up a little time. Those are basically Mars records. The Mars records are being imported and converted. You're editing them. Own it. When you look at one, see, hey, all right, it needs to be edited here. What needs to be edited? And say, all right, this makes sense to me. I see what the state's asking in this new Edify item. All right. All right, update students by grade level. In Mars, you would create and upload a Mars A and B file with student data to be sent to the MDE, fulfill your state reporting requirements. Now in Edify, you simply update the students by grade level to send their data to the MDE. You go to Minnesota, Edify, update students by grade level to get started. Now, before I tell you what to do here, this is an important question. A woman from Blue Earth emailed me and said, hey, I know, I'm kind of summarizing here, but I know that all records are sent for the whole district, right? All records are sent by district. Well, how do the people fix the errors, right? Well, what happens is when you send in this grade 0 on here, you'll get a list of errors by grade 0, and you'll get a list of errors by grade 1, by grade 2, by grade 3. So if you have a district that has multiple elementary schools, you've got 2 elementary schools, you would send that kindergarten error report to both elementary schools, and they can both update their errors by grade level. So you're not going to see an error report for the entire district. You'll see it by grade level. And if you're not the person that fixes the errors, then you'll disseminate this report to those people by grade level. If you are the person that fixes them, you fix them, and then you're good to go. So step 1, select a grade level in the grades drop-down list to submit data. Again, it needs to be done for each grade level. Step 2, click the Minnesota Edify Update Students by Grade Level button to send student data to MDE for that grade level. Helpful tip, once you click the Minnesota Edify Update Students by Grade Level button, do not delete a student because their record now exists in MDE. This is important. I'm not a fan of deleting students. I said that if you haven't watched the Mars state reporting video, and actually I should just say that real quick here. Let me just go here. If you have not yet watched on our YouTube channel, the Minnesota Mars start year video, it's right here. 8/19/21 Minnesota State Reporting Roundup. You could type this in, just go to our JMC training channel and watch this video. You should definitely watch that first to make sure that everything's up to date. And I stress in there, don't delete kids from JMC, because if you delete them from JMC, after you've uploaded them to Edify, it's a pain because you got to put them back in and then delete them from Edify. So in essence, what I tell you is that once you start this process, don't delete kids anymore. That's just a great rule of thumb. If you want to delete kids, wait till you roll over next year. Then you can delete students, but don't delete a kid out of JMC after you've done this process. Fun fact, your data will now be validated by MD, and a report will be generated displaying any errors with the student data. Okay. Then step 2, go here. Click the minute, so we click this here, you'll see a list of errors there with that student data. Now, just like before, click the print summary button to save the summary as a PDF, or cancel summary to return to the Minnesota Edify Update Students by Grade Level page. So again, here's the rule of thumb. You get this error report, print that, save it. 08, if it was today, 08/15/21. This is my grade 0 error report for Edify. And I would call it Edify error report, and save that to a folder on your desktop. You can look at it later. It's going to tell you that again, this is a demo database. I've got 88 errors I need to update. And I've got 0 that's successfully sent. You're not going to have that, right? I do. But it's telling me, we're telling you right here, Edify process, right? This student doesn't have a state ID, right? This student right here, it's first name and last name. This student doesn't have a Mars number, right? So all those things are listed right there. We're going to tell you what to do. Now, helpful tip, if you run into trouble when editing student data, the summary PDF is a great tool for you and tech support to diagnose the error. So we want you to own this, right? You don't want to just send this into JMC tech support and say, hey, I've got 13 errors. What do I do, right? Because you want to learn this. You want to own it. So go each one, solve them. If there's one you can't figure out, and I bet you can solve 99% of them. If there's one you can't figure out, take that, highlight it, email it to our tech support team and say, this is one I can't figure out. And then when you figure it out, you'll be like, hey, now I know, I'm good to go for the future. Step 4, review the summary to see what student data was uploaded and if any additional information needs to be added to a student's record. So again, the helpful tip reminding you, the summary report will detail how the record should be edited and guide you through the process, right? Remember, not everything on here is going to be an error, right? They might just be telling you that records were successfully sent. Fun fact, if your submission was successful and error-free, move on to creating and submitting new Mars A and B files. Step 5 is repeat steps 1 through 5 for all grade levels until all errors are addressed for each grade level. So you come in, you'll do this for grade 0, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, all at K-12 if you're a K-12 building. Then once you're done doing that, then you are going to do a new Mars A and B file submission. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the step. So first you do a successful error-free Mars A and B file submission via Mars West. Then you do all these steps. Then you go back and do another Mars A and B file. So you have 2 matching records to compare. If you have any questions on how to fix errors, please attend one of our Edify onboarding Q&A sessions or check out the FAQ located in the appendix. This is really important, folks. There's an appendix at the end of this presentation, which has many common errors that you're going to see. I'm going to go through it right at the end. If you get an error during the process, just scroll to the bottom of this and see if it's on there, because most likely we've got the error on there and how to fix it if it's not in the import summary there as well. So we'll walk you through that. I'm actually starting the Q&A session by going through those errors because they're common. Again, we want to set you up for success. So let's take a live look at updating students by grade level. If you have a question, you can answer, or you can ask it now. So we'll come here under Minnesota, Edify, update students by grade level. I come in here, grade 0, and I would update that right there. And I would see any errors that are listed there. And I click that to my print summary. And I go to grade 1, and I update my grade 1, and print off my import summary and any errors that are listed there as well, and go right on through it. So it's really, really easy to do. But this is it's kind of like the process of doing Mars West, right? You're going and you're seeing the errors, and then you are editing them and taking care of them, and then re-uploading that data until you are error free. But again, you don't have to create in the future, right? You don't have to create any files. You'll just click a button. That's where some of the time savings is. Got a question. Karen, thanks for reaching out. Is this being recorded where I can watch it again? I'm in the office and a lot's going on. Karen, absolutely. Everybody who's registered for this will be emailed the link to this video. And Karen, I want to tell you as well, these slides, which you should follow, are going to be in the description of this YouTube video. Great question. All right. Looks like there's no questions. So update a student. So the update a grade level process, it takes a little while, right? If I've got, 300 first graders and you update it, it's going to take a little bit to update that information there. So you want to make sure to let it run there. So if you have just a student, I'll talk about this in a moment. That's why we have this option there as well. There's another question here. Julie says, why is kindergarten and preschool both listed as 0? That's just because we're sending all those students in at the same time, Julie. So you can get an error report. Some might be preschool kids, some might be grade 0 kids, whatever it might be, but the state takes them in as grade 0 and generates that error report based on grade 0, not by the subgroups. So they're expecting anything up to preschool up to kindergarten is grade 0. That's how the state will take it, and that's how they'll generate that error report. Because the error report actually is coming from MDE. It's not a JMC error report. We try to put it in language that makes sense to you, but that error report's coming from the MDE via Edify. All right, update a student. During the process of fixing student errors, you may find that you only need to resubmit data for a handful of students. In this case, there's no need to send data in for all students in all grade levels. Instead, we'll correct the data by student by student. So you head to Minnesota Edify update student to submit data for a specific student to MDE. Step 1, enter the student's name in the Minnesota Edify update student dropdown list and select the student for whom you'd like to resubmit. Fun fact, the student's name, state ID, grade levels, JMC student ID, and the student reference number are displayed to ensure you have selected the correct student. Step 2, click the Minnesota Edify update student button to begin submitting Edify data for that student. You repeat the process for additional students that need Edify data submitted here. So I don't even show you how to do that because it's so easy to do. And it's just if you want to do it, you've got a couple students that you need to update errors for, you just go in there and update them. It's a very quick process. All right, creating and submitting new Mars A and B files. After all of your Edify data has been uploaded to the MDE and is error-free, you'll need to create and upload new Mars A and B files to compare your Edify submission. So if there's any questions about that, about the update a student, update a grade level, or resubmitting your Mars A and B files, you can ask them now. But I will tell you this again, sometimes people skip over this. They get done with their Edify and they're like, oh, I'm all done. I can move forward. You have to still update your Mars A and B files as well. So go through it. All right, I'll give folks just a couple seconds to see if they have any questions. And if not, I'll keep on rolling. All right, looks like we're ready to go. Are you ready for production? Are you ready? MDE will double check your data and determine if you're ready to move to the production phase. We don't do that, right? So once you've done uploading your Edify grade levels and you've uploaded error-free Mars AMB file, simply email MDE at this email address here to let them know you're ready for the production environment. That's it. They're the ones that determine if you're ready to move on or not. They're the ones that are going to do. And I'm not sure about this. I think they walk you through a process of comparing files. I could be wrong about that. I know it's part of the process, but they do something to make sure everything looks good on their end. So any questions about that? I don't think there's any questions on that because I think that's pretty easy. But if folks do, they can type them in. We're going to keep on rolling here to make sure we stay on time. All right, transition from staging to production. Once you hear back from the MDE that your staging was successful, you're ready to start moving to the production environment of the Edify process, where you'll be submitting live data to the MDE via Edify. So the 21-22 production key and secret. Your school will replace your staging key and secret combination with a unique production key and secret combination to serve as your connection from JMC to Mars to Edify. So you're replacing these. The MDE created a ESCT tool to create your production key and secret. Now, I'm just going to tell you, the steps I'm going to go over here for the rest of the presentation are almost all the same as what you've done already. So I'm going to go through them a little more quickly. Why? Because A, you've heard them already. And B, just follow the directions, right? Follow these steps that you have. If you're watching this on YouTube, go to the description of this video and download this document. Just follow that. So you'll click here to do your ECST process, and the helpful tip, contact the MDE there if you have any questions. Okay, I'm gonna keep on rolling. If anyone has any questions, you can type it in now. But the main thing to note is you got to get a new key and secret that's done for production. Then you'll update your Edify settings. Setting your MDE connection is very easy. You'll head to File, Administrator Options, just like before. Click the Edify settings link and it will open up a new window. Now it's time to turn on the Edify interchanges. Now follow these steps exactly. First, enter the new API and authentication URLs in the appropriate fields to connect to the MDE server. That are these ones right here. You will copy and paste them right here for your API URL and your authentication URL. You just come in here, copy that link, right? And paste it right in there for you. Really easy to do. It's actually the same for every school. It's only your client key and secret that are specific to your particular school district. Then step 3, enter the new production client key and client secret you obtained in your ESCT process. Step 4, select production environment using the implementation status drop-down list to change the environment from staging to production. Step 5, click the save button to save your Edify settings. So really easy to do. If you have a question about this, you can ask it. But again, it's the same process as before. So once you've done staging, just so you know, folks, things actually get easier. You go under File, Administrator Options, down to Edify settings. Come here. You'll put your new API URL in. You'll put in the new authentication URL right from this presentation here. And the state might even send them to you as well. I'm not exactly sure if they do, but we make them available in this presentation. Change the implementation status from staging to production. Put in your client key, put your client secret, and click save. Really easy to do. All right. Then we do the start your steps. Why are we doing this over again? Because before was staging, it was practice. We're not practicing anymore. We're in the real deal. Now that you've moved up to the production environment, let's ensure your JMC office data has been set up correctly. So go to Minnesota Edify, start year. Make sure that all these are done and place a check mark in each one. Come in here, do this again. Click the update all schools table. Click the update all local education agencies. Click the update all post-secondary institutions button and update all courses button as well. If you get an error on this one, it means that your key and secret are not correct. Contact the MDE and you can move forward. Also, you can check the error listings we have at the appendix of this particular presentation. I'll show you that in just a moment or in a few minutes. Go to the general tab, update your calendar as well. Okay, so that sends the calendar information there as well. Now, just so you know, you can update your calendar as many times as you want throughout the year. Why do we do that? Because if you have a snow day, right, or your calendar changes, you'll come in here and you'll update that calendar there. What do you need to do in the students tab? Nothing. You can skip it at the moment. So I don't think there's going to be any questions about this because it's the same as before. If you have a question, you can type it in, but I'm going to keep on rolling because I know your time is valuable. Working through errors. Now that you've updated all Edify tables and sent your calendar to the MDE, it's time to talk errors. Did you receive a few during the start of your process or were you error-free? Let's look at the next steps to keep you both moving forward. So if you're error-free, if you're able to complete steps 1 through 7 to start your steps without errors, your key and secret are successfully communicated with the MDE and you can move on to Minnesota Edify onboarding phase 4 production. Woohoo! Did you receive errors? If you received errors from performing steps 1 through 7, contact the MDE at this email here to ensure your key and secret you entered are correct. Then basically it says update, and you put in your new key and secret here and update your Edify settings page and go through these steps again. It happens to schools. They don't put in the correct key and secret. They miss a character, whatever it is, go through again. It's not a hard process, but if you get errors here in phase 3, contact the MDE. That's a good rhyme there. If you get errors in phase 3, contact the MDE. All right, I don't think people have questions because that was repeat. So let's go on to phase 4 production. Welcome to the Edify production environment. This 4th phase of the Minnesota Edify onboarding process allows you to import, edit, and send in student program history and special education history data to the MDE with your live data. During this Edify transition year, the steps laid out in this phase are to be completed every time you submit Edify data from now to the end of the school year. I want to repeat that again, folks. You are going to do phase 4 of this process every time you want to update Edify data. You're going to do this process. So you're probably going to do this at least once a month. I tell people, set a date on your calendar, the 3rd Thursday of every month, go through this entire process to do this. So once you're done through phase 3 the first time, you're done. But phase 4 is what you're going to do over and over again throughout the rest of the school year. So this means you'll go through the phase 4 process during this initial Minnesota Edify onboarding process and repeat the steps as you are to continue to make changes to your students' enrollment and MARS data. This includes uploading an error-free MARS A and B files to the MD. Once you've completed the MARS file submission process, you're ready to start submitting your data to via Edify to MD by completing the steps in phase 4. So is there any questions from folks about that you are going to do phase 4 every time you want to update your Edify information to the MDE? Again, our recommendation, I think I have a slide on this, is probably to do it at least once a month to save yourself headaches in the future. So just like you would do MARS uploads maybe once a month, you would do your MARS upload once a month, you would do this Edify process, and then you do your MARS upload again. Great, so keep this presentation handy. All right, upload your JMC calendar just like before. The school calendar was completed in phase 1 of the Minnesota Edify reporting process. Now that you're in the production phase, let's upload the school calendar for each building in your district. Each building in your district. So it's done one time again for all buildings. You'll go to the general tab in Minnesota Edify start year, just like we did before. Click the update calendar button to send it to the calendar to the MD. Why are we doing this now? Because you want to do it every time you upload your MARS files as well, to make sure they have the most up-to-date calendar in case you have snow days. Helpful tip, update your calendar multiple times throughout the onboarding process to ensure the MD has the latest information. All right, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and type them in. But again, that's a repeat of before, so super easy. Import special education and special education history. Again, this is a repeat. Program history and special education history records are new terms. We went over what those were already, right? You're just going to go in through here, go to Minnesota Program and Special Education History, import program and special education history here for all records of your students at the same time. Step 1, enter 6/1/2021 in the begin date to ensure all program history records are converted for any enrollment history records that were created and edited over the summer. I don't care if it's May 15th of 2022. We want you to put 6/1/2021 in here. That way, every record is captured for you. It's just great. Everybody does it the same way, no matter if you're at the end of the school year or not. We're just getting all those records in there. So always put in 6/1/2021. It doesn't matter to us when school started. It doesn't matter if you're doing this in January of 2022. Choose 6/1/2021. That way all records are captured. Leave all these checkboxes checked and click the import button to import them for the current school year. Click the print import summary button. Just like I said before, print this import here. Save it to your desktop in a folder with the date and what it is. Step 4, review the import summary to see what program and special education history records were imported, which student records need to be edited, right? We're importing all the records that are new at this point. Only some need to be edited, so only edit the ones that you need to be edited. And again, I want to repeat, once you've imported a record, if you change a MARS record, you need to change it as a special education or program history record as well. Because once the import's done, if something changes, we don't update changes. We only import it one time and create that new record. Helpful tip, the import summary report will detail how the record should be edited and guide you through the process. All program and special education records will be imported for your students. Only update records on the View Student Data screen if the import summary instructs you to do so. All right, I don't think there's gonna be any questions again because that was a repeat, so we're gonna keep on rolling. Update a special education program and special education history record just like before. Some program history records and special education history records will need additional information depending on the latest MDE requirements. During this process, your import summary PDF will come in handy. Review the summary and take a note on the steps, the student records that need to be edited, and the next steps indicated. So come in here, find the student, select the program history rec tab, click the edit link, come in here, enter the required information the import summary report is requesting using the appropriate fields and drop-down lists, and then click the update link or cancel if you want to cancel there. So then for the special education history is the same. Click the special education history tab to edit the student special education history record or the import summary report. Click the edit link to edit the special education history record. Enter any required information detailed on the import summary report using the appropriate fields and drop-down lists. Step 4, click the update button to save any changes made to the student's program history record or the cancel button to exit. I don't think there's again going to be any questions because that's the same thing you did in staging, right? That's why I said staging's practice. Get the staging down, and then it's much easier when you get to the production phase, and that's where you're fixing all your errors too, is in that staging phase. So all right, I'm going to keep on rolling. Update students by grade level. In MARS, you would create and upload a MARS A and B file with the student data to be sent to MDE to fulfill your state reporting requirements. Now in Edify, simply update the students by grade level to send it in under Minnesota, Edify, update students by grade level to get started. Select the grade level here in the drop-down list to submit data. Click the Minnesota Edify Update Students by Grade Level button. Once you click that button there, do not delete a student because their record now exists in MDE. As I told you before, I would just, starting today, don't delete any kids. That would be my rule for you. It makes it easier for you in the long run. Fun fact, your data will now be validated by MDE and a report will be generated displaying any errors with the student data. You'll click again the click the print summary button to save the summary as a PDF or cancel it there. As I said, save this. What's the date? What's the name of the report? You'll save it for future use and for asking for help, because our helpful tip is if you run into trouble when editing student data, the summary PDF is a great tool for you and your tech support to diagnose the error. Step 4, review the summary to see what student data was uploaded and if any additional information needs to be added to a student's record. Helpful tip, the summary report will detail how the record should be edited and guide you through the process. Fun fact, if your submission was successful and error-free, move on to creating and submitting new MARS A and B files. Repeat steps 1 through 5 for all grade levels until all grade errors are addressed for each grade level. So actually, you would repeat all the steps for the grade level first, and then after all the grade levels are done, then you would create your MARS A and B file. So if you have any questions on how to fix errors, please attend one of our weekly Edify onboarding Q&A sessions or check out the FAQ located in the appendix. I've got a Q&A tomorrow, and I've got one after each session. I think we've got 3 or 4 more. So any questions about that? It's the same process we followed in staging. You're going to go in, update your students by grade level. You'll get that report. Some of them will be errors that you'll have to update. Many will be just letting you know that information was imported. You'll go and edit those records based on the information that's listed there. Once that's all done, you'll upload another MARS A and B file so that you have something to compare. And I think that's what the state wants, is they want you to be able to go in there and compare an error-free Edify file to an error-free MARS A and B file, make sure everything is functioning correctly on your end. Update student just like before. During the process of fixing student errors, you may find that you only need to resubmit data for a handful of students. In this case, there's no need to send data in for all the students in all the grade levels. Instead, we'll correct the student data, student by student. Head to Minnesota Edify Update Student to submit data for the specific student to MDE. Step 1, Enter the student's name in the Minnesota Edify Update Student dropdown list. You'd like to select data for whom you'd like. Their identifying information will be listed here. Step 2, click the Minnesota Edify Update Student to begin resubmitting Edify data for the student. And you repeat this process for additional students. Why would you do this? Because again, it takes a little while to do a whole grade level to submit that data to MDE via Edify and get an error report back. If you just have a few students, you might do it here because it will be quicker. Then creating and submitting new Mars A and B files. After all of your Edify data has been uploaded to the MDE and is error-free, you'll need to create and upload new Mars A and B files to compare your Edify submission. So I don't think, again, people are gonna have questions about that. Just follow the directions as we have them laid out here, send in those Mars A and B files. So what's next? Now, before I go to what's next, I wanna tell you, don't stop viewing this video just because I get to the thank you slide, because I'm gonna say thank you, then I'm right away gonna go into the errors that you're gonna see. That's gonna empower you to say, oh, when an error comes up, you're gonna see some items there. So there's some really important errors that you need to be aware of that all of you are probably going to get, that there's specific ways we want you to fix them. So what's next? So first, now that you've submitted all your error-free student data for all of your students, you've completed the Minnesota Edify reporting process. Boom, give yourself a high five. Go home and tell a loved one, or go out and grab some dinner with your best friend. Tell them, I just completed the Minnesota Edify transition process. And they're gonna look at you and say, I have no idea what you're talking about, but that sounds great. High five to you. But you should be proud of yourself. At JMC, we recommend going through this process at least once a month to ensure your Mars data and corresponding Edify data is correct as you move toward the end of year state reporting. So any questions about that before we go into the errors that you will commonly see? Let's see if there's any questions here. Let me grab a drink of water and then we'll go through the errors. All right, I don't see any that have come in. So I'll go back to the thank you slide in a moment, but I want to first go through the appendix. Here's some errors. First, user says, yikes, I received a 400 error. All right, typically these are data communication errors. I mean, if you get a 400 error, that means that you just need to try to do it again, or that 400 error, you'll want to submit again. So the helpful tip is try clicking the Minnesota Edify Update Students by Grade Level button again to resubmit your data for this grade level. So if I get a 400 error on a whole bunch of kids, come in and update again. Every single time. That's what's going to fix that for you. It just means that somehow maybe the state is not taking information on, they've got a hiccup on their server, or the internet is slow, or whatever it might be. You're going to get a 400 error saying that there's a communication error. Just resubmit, and if it resubmit, you get a 400 error again, wait till a little bit later at the end of the day and do it, or do it the next morning. But just you don't need to contact the MDE or even JMC about a 400 error. Just know it's, hey, something's not communicating with the MDE. It's the internet, right? That can happen. Just do it right away. It'll go in. If it doesn't, wait an hour, do it in the following morning, and update that student by grade level. All right. Uh-oh, I'm starting to panic. I see a 403 error for the majority of my students on both of my reports. JMC, no biggie. Your JMC school calendar is more likely not set up correctly. If you get a 403 error, it means that your calendar is not set up correctly. Go in and review this video. I've got one right there. It's also the Minnesota State reporting one that I just sent you as well. Enter the correct term dates. You got to do that as outlined in the Mars fall submission instructions. Repeat steps 1 through 4 of updating students by grade level. So if you get a 403 error, make sure that your calendar is set up correctly. This is how we're setting you up for success, folks. Oof, I'm getting this error. Student identifying information given does not match any students. JMC, this is occurring because the student is not yet in the MDE Edify system yet. So it's really interesting that MDE doesn't have all the students in Minnesota in their Edify system, right? You, as all the schools, are populating those. So if you have a kid that's been in your district K-12 and you've never done Edify reporting, you're going to get an error that says it's something like student identifying information given does not match any students, because Edify is saying, I don't see a kid like that in our database. What do? Since the new students in your district are not in your staging environment, the MDE recommends ignoring those errors for now and addressing them when you move into the production environment. So those new students you don't have in there, just ignore them when you move to the production environment there as well. Why? Because you're going to see this error in the staging environment. So if I get this right here, identifying information during staging, skip it and we'll address it during the production environment. All right, I'm getting an error about invalid character in a student's name. Most likely there's a period in the student's middle name. What do? Go to edit student data and remove the period from the student's middle name. Oh, sorry, got it. There we go. Sorry about that. Somebody was calling me here on this. There we go. Okay. So you remove the period from that student's middle name. And so there's not many students that have a period in the middle name. And I guess the MDE doesn't accept periods in a middle name. So you'll have to delete that out and then resubmit that file. User, I'm getting an error about missing or incorrect ancestry information. James C, most likely a field was left empty. So if you got to have your ancestry information in there to do Edify reporting. So if it was left empty, you'd have to go in for that student and update that ancestry information. Go to Edit Student Data, click the Race Ethnicity tab to enter missing information for that student. Oops, I reported a student, both Mars and Edify, that I shouldn't have reported at all. Okay, this is a simple fix that only takes a few steps to correct. So you accidentally reported a kid that never showed up to school, but and is not going to attend your school. First, you go to Minnesota, Edify, delete a student. Find the student and delete them from the Edify portal. Then uncheck their Mars flag. It's really easy. So you delete them from the Edify portal because once they're submitted to the state, you don't want to, again, delete them from JMC. You want to just delete them from the state, uncheck their Mars flag, and that way, or any of their flags, but specifically their Mars flag. So any questions about any of those errors before I go on? They probably don't mean much to you now, but when you start going through this, if you get an error, scroll to the appendix and see if that error is listed here. Take the appropriate corrective action, and then you'll be good to go. All right, so I think that's it. So I'm gonna hang on for just a minute, see if anybody has any errors. I truly appreciate your time today. Do yourself a favor, I'm saying this with a smile on face, and James C a favor, and the MD. Follow these directions as they're laid out, and then you'll be successful. And a lot of folks have told us, oh, I'm very stressed about this, I'm very nervous. You don't need to be stressed. Just follow the steps. It was a lot harder for you to learn how to drive a car than it was to learn how to do your Edify reporting. Just follow the steps, staging's practice. That's where you learn how to work with it. Then you'll get into production. And after a while, you'll say, hey, this is easy. Just go through the steps and you're good to go. Once you've done it through all 4 steps one time, you'll complete stage 4 as you go through. So appreciate your time today. If you want to, you can attend the JMC Q&A Edify session tomorrow, which would be helpful. And then we'll go from there. So thanks for your time, everybody. I'll hang on for just a minute to see if there's any questions. If not, we'll sign off. I will post this video to YouTube and email it to everybody. Have a great day, folks.